Good afternoon and welcome to the Ohioana Book Festival and to the Floyd's Pick Book Award author panel. My name is Janet Ingraham Dwyer. I am here to say a few words about our namesake. I'm the Youth Services Library Consultant at the State Library of Ohio. I am Project Coordinator for Choose to Read Ohio, which administers this book award. I am friend and colleague of our moderator, Desiree Thomas. I'm one of very many people who were mentored by Floyd Dickman. And I'm also completely starstruck about this panel. So I got nervous jitters and I'm going to try to go fast and turn it over to our authors. But I want to say to everybody here, first of all, thank you for coming and attending. And second, Floyd Dickman was completely dedicated to children's literature and librarianship. I know there are some people watching who knew him and some people watching who may not have been familiar with him. He worked as a library consultant at the State Library of Ohio for 23 years. He taught for 20 years at the Kent State University School of Library and Information Science, which is now called the iSchool. Floyd volunteered and participated everywhere, from the National Association for Library Service to Children to local schools and libraries, the Mazza Museum at the University of Findlay, the Ohioana Book Festival, and the Choose to Read Ohio Advisory Council, just to name a few. When I started at the State Library 11 years ago, 11 and a half years ago, coming out of 15 years of public library experience, but feeling like a beginner, Floyd took me under his wing. And I quickly learned that for children's literature, authors, illustrators, librarians, and readers, Floyd was an advocate, he was a champion, a mentor, and an enthusiast of the highest order. His encouragement was transformative. I'm tremendously honored to speak in his memory and just to be here today. And so thank you again. And I'm going to pass it over now to Desiree Thomas, librarian at Worthington Libraries here in Central Ohio, Choose to Read Ohio advisor, and all around awesome librarian and guiding light.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 2021 Ohioana Book Festival. I'm Desiree Thomas, and I am pleased to welcome you to the Floyd's Pick panel. We'd like to thank our festival sponsors and partners, all of whom you can find listed on the Ohioana website. And thanks to our official bookseller, the Book Loft of German Village. You can get copies of all of the books featured at the festival by going online to bookloft.com. Floyd's Pick is a book award developed by the Choose to Read Ohio Advisory Council and presented in memory of children's literature expert, advocate, and librarian Floyd Dickman. It is given annually to a book written by an Ohio author or a book illustrated by an Ohio illustrator that is representative of high quality literature created for children. The Choose to Read Ohio Advisory Council established Floyd's Pick in December of 2015 with a proclamation by Beverly Kane, who was then the state librarian of Ohio. Since then, the Choose to Read Ohio Advisory Council has selected one outstanding book of Ohio's children's literature annually to be designated as Floyd's Pick. I am delighted to share that all three of our panelists have been Floyd's Pick Award recipients. And now I am pleased to welcome our authors. Jacqueline Woodson is the critically acclaimed author of more than 24 award-winning books for young adults, middle graders, and children and adults, okay, read her books, including New York Times bestsellers Red at the Bone and Brown Girl Dreaming. She is a 4-time Newbery Honor winner, a 3-time National Book Awards finalist, and 2-time Coretta Scott King Award winner. She was named the 2015 Young People's Poet Laureate by the Poetry Foundation and 2018 Ambassador for Young People's Literature by the Library of Congress and was selected for the 2020 MacArthur Genius Fellowship. Jacqueline Woodson was also the 2020 recipient of the Hans Christian Andersen Award, the highest international recognition given to an author and illustrator of children's books. Her children's book, The Day You Begin, was Floyd's Pick in 2019. Welcome, Jacqueline.
So good to be here. Thank you.
Mora is a collage artist and storyteller. Her picture book, Thank you, Omo. Was a Caldecott Honor, Coretta Scott King, and John Steptoe New Talent Award winner, and Ezra Jackie's Book Award recipient. Her second book, Saturday, won the 2020 Boston Globe Foreign Book Picture Book Award, and Oge's artwork has been applauded by the Washington Post, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the Boston Globe. She also recently made the Forbes 30 Under 30 2021 list in arts and style. Oge grew up in Columbus, Ohio, but resides in Providence, Rhode Island. Thank You, Omo was the Floyd's pick for 2020, and The Oldest Student, How Mary Walker Learned to Read, was illustrated by Oge Mora and is a 2021 Floyd Pick honor book. Welcome, Oge.
Hey.
Everyone.
Aiko Ikegami was born in Tokyo, Japan, and loves animals, drawing, painting, and colors. Her artwork is amazing. She became the youngest student of Kimi Tanaka, a famous female oil painter in Japan. She studied psychology at Arizona State University and received the degree of Bachelor of Science in 1997. Aiko decided to follow her heart and started painting and making children's books, and boy, are we glad she did. Aiko is a member of the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators since December of 2013. She is also a member of the Ohio Arts League since January of 2014. Her children's book, hello, is the Floyd's pick for 2021. Welcome, Aiko.
Yeah. Hi everyone, and I'm so glad to be here with such an amazing author and illustrator like Jaqueline and Oge, and so thank you for having me today.
Oh, thank you for being here. So I thought I would start with a general question. You all are recipients of the Floyd's Pick Book Award, which highlights books that will get kids excited about reading. So in your experience, what is the most important aspect or ingredient needed in creating high quality literature for children? So I would like Oge to answer first, and then Aiko, and then Jackie.
Oh, that's a really awesome question. I think maybe my answer to this question would be rather simple, but like it's, I think something that's like a real key ingredient. When I think about particularly like my avenue of picture books, I think it's important for writers or creators to read their books out loud and really think about how that book is going to be performed, especially since like you're making books for young readers who might not be able to read just yet on their own. And so really thinking about how those words sound, how that page turn is unveiled, and really thinking about that real performance of that book, I think is just really crucial.
Mm-hmm.
Aiko?
Oh yes. So my my book Hello is a wordless picture book. There's no word on it, so I tried really hard not to confuse readers, yet express what I want to say with art, but not too much to dictate. So that's what I really put effort on, and I was having I was lucky that I had such a wonderful art director at the publisher. So.
Wow. I so agree with both what Oge and Aiko are saying in terms of how to engage the reader. I too read my work out loud and try to hear how it sounds in the world and to really understand the sentence structure so that it's not too long for young people and that there's a rhythm in it that they can get into. And also in terms of the art, which I get to choose the illustrators, but I don't draw because I wish I had the gift that Oge and Aiko have. I don't. And when I look at their illustrations, my questions tend to be about how are these illustrations speaking to the reader? Do they see themselves in them? Do they see their friends? You know, are they going to begin a dialogue with the ideas in the book? And so, and of course, the biggest question I always want to know with my own writing is like, is this didactic? Because we know if it's didactic at all, we're going to lose the readers.
I will have to say that all of your work, every single one of you, your work draws the reader in so that you're engaged with looking at every aspect of the page. Like I was just thinking of Oge, you're looking at like, how did you create this mixed media piece and just communicate stories? So you guys are all really effective at communicating stories. So my next question is, tell us what you would like the librarian to say to a reader who has never read any of your books. What do you want them to know about you as an author, about your featured book, or about your body of work? So I would like Aiko to start first, and then Oge, and then Jacqueline.
So my most of my books has only limited words. So I try to express with art, but like I said before, I don't like to dictate. This is what it has to be. This is the picture books. What I want to create is not a textbook, so it's not like 1 + 1 = 2. And I want audience or reader to interpret or create their own stories with their own experience. So each person, I hope to see their interpretation is different in each person, and that's beautiful thing, I think. And then as they grow up and then going back to the book again, and maybe their interpretation will change. So that's what I like to see as my with my picture books. Thank you.
I definitely relate to everything that Aiko just said. I think if there was anything that I would hope that someone maybe might say about my work is I would consider it a win if you consider any of my work very cozy, like almost like a warm cup of cocoa. That is definitely what I go for in my books. I hope these would be books that might remind you of somebody in your life or something in your life. I would love for you to have some sort of personal connection to it, or it might remind you of something that you enjoy. Definitely. I think I hope that this would be a book that you might return to, you know, over and over again. That like, oh, read it once, but go in again, because I definitely, as I'm making my illustrations, try to have like little details here and there and page to page, because I know that when I was a kid, that was my favorite thing. Looking at picture books was being able to read a book and then read it again through just the images, then read it again and notice something different every single time. And so I just would hope that maybe my book might make you smile, but I just would hope that it might remind you of something that makes you smile, at least, I guess.
Yeah, I think I would want the librarian to say to the reader that, you know, the author would want you to just read the book through the pictures first without reading the words, and see if you can get the story through the pictures. I think, and then when you do decide to read the words, if you decide to read the words, read them really slowly. I think I never want readers, especially young readers, to be intimidated by text. And I think reading the book via the pictures first is a nice way into the story. And with great picture books, the pictures tell the story just as the words do.
I totally agree with picture books being like a warm cup of cocoa because they are. And Aiko, specifically with Hello, the friendship in that book, I felt like I was having all these moments like, they found a friend, and then you would read it again, you're like, I didn't see that last time. So what Oge was talking about of having these surprise elements. So it's not just one simple reading, it's you get a new experience every time you go back. I'm sure all of us have read something from the past or we read when we were younger, and then you read it again now just to see if you still love it, if you still like it, if you still rock with it. So the next question is really, number one, how do you decide what to write about? And then we're adults, so how do you keep that whole childlike perspective when you're writing? So this one is Oge is first, and then Jacqueline, and then Aiko.
I think I definitely think of myself when I was a kid first, and the things that really drew me in, and I kind of start from that, like that's still that playful spirit that I have. So yeah, I definitely think about I grew up in Columbus, Ohio. So the MLK branch is my local branch in Columbus. And I know the library just moved. It moved a couple of years ago, but it used to be like actually right across the street from my house. Yeah. So I was there literally every single day. Like we would go from school straight to there. So I was there with like my siblings. And because I was at the library so often, I definitely experienced a lot of different story times. And it was always those books that were just like the ones where you could kind of join in, or like you were doing like different like hand things, or you could ask a question or like be a part of the storytelling. And then you might be able to, or those books that you might have read, and then you like could get those pictures and then see like, oh, there's like a tiny little story that's going on in the pictures that is like running parallel to the story that's being told in the words, and just really playing around with like the magic of that. So I just definitely think of like little Oge like at the MLK library and spending hours and hours in the children's book section that they had over there, and just reading everything and being read to over there. And I just really want to like replicate that. I think that I just think for stories in general, I have like this joke with like a lot of my friends where like, I know like I've experienced a really amazing story when I feel like a kid or like that 14-year-old in my like bedroom, and I'm like, yes. Or like I'm just so greatly moved by a story, and like, and you just get that kind of like feeling that like swells up in you, whether that is you're moved to tears, or you're laughing so hard, or you're just incredibly inspired, or like you're angry with a purpose. It's like a call to action, whatever that feeling is, like that big expressive feeling that like swells up in you. And I think that recreating that experience, in order to, you have to stay in touch with that. And so I definitely am thinking about how do I reproduce that magic I feel when I've read a really good story.
So great. It's so funny because, I was born in Columbus, and then my childhood was spent in Greenville and in Brooklyn. And we had the same experience, okay, where after school, we went directly to the library because my mom worked full time and she was a single mom. And that's where we went until she picked us up from work. And it was the safe place. And I didn't grow up, because I grew up in the 70s and 80s. I didn't grow up with story time, which is interesting. There wasn't, at the Washington Irving branch in Bushwick, there wasn't story time. Like, we went to the library, we had to be quiet, and we had to sit and read. And I was a really slow reader, still am. And I would sit with the books that were very quiet. Like, I remember the first book I really fell in love with was The Little Match Girl by Hans Christian Andersen, and reading that again and again, and really getting into that story and the feelings that Oge is talking about, like, you know, the call to action. Like, I never wanted any kid to be have to starve to death or freeze to death. Like, and the feelings that welled up in me when I read that book, those were the feelings I wanted to bring to my writing. So even as a kid, I was like, I want to do this. I want to make someone else feel this way. Not because I wanted someone to feel sad, but I wanted them to, you know, looking back on it, I wanted them to activate, right? And create some kind of change in the world. And I wanted to do it myself. And I think of Madeline Lingle, who said, when you write, you should write remembering the child you were, because the essence of childhood doesn't change. You know, the technology and fashion changes back, but I do, it's the same thing. I go back to get into the world of writing for young people. I go back to who I was as a kid and what spoke to me as a kid. And when I'm writing, if I'm writing something and it's supposed to be funny and I'm not laughing out loud as I write it, it's not funny, right? But sometimes I think it's really funny and I'm laughing and my kids are like, that's not funny, mommy. But then, like, or if I'm writing something and it's really heartbreaking, I'm sitting there choked up because I'm, you know, inside the emotional narrative. And so that's how I get to it. You know, I always say my writing's not not physically autobiographical, but it's emotionally autobiographical. So I do go into it deeply from that emotional core and from my own childhood memories.
Aiko?
I totally agree with Jacqueline and Oge. And the writing stories comes, I don't think that I will, okay, I decided to write this kind of story. It's just a story or images coming into me, and then I'm like a vessel to express. So, and then at the end, I don't know, did I write it or did I create a book? So, but it's just coming into me, and because I'm forgetful, I forget easily. I just quickly write it down. So I have a bunch of like memo stacks on, and then plus I usually get these ideas or like story is in my kitchen for somehow. So I have a lot of memo stack, like a stack of papers, scratching papers on my kitchen, so I don't forget what's coming into my head. So I just quickly write it down, and then later I will do the jigsaw puzzles to to create it. But I think it's isn't it like more like a spiritual experience? Do you agree? Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. So for some reason, I believe that these words, art, and the music's the bridge between spiritual world and actual world. So if we can really work hard to create the bridge and make somebody feel something, wouldn't that be wonderful? And then you guys are doing it.
You too.
So
You are. Go ahead, Jacqueline.
I just, it's so interesting what Aiko said about the spiritual world. I remember I was somewhere and a kid asked me if writing was a spiritual journey for me. And she was like a 10-year-old kid. And I was like, wow, you've been here before, haven't you? So because she got it. So sorry. So thanks for saying that, Aiko.
Well, I would like to thank you all for writing books that make us all feel like we're having, there's so many emotions. I was just thinking of Underneath the Meth Moon. There's a part where her younger brother is patting her on the back and she's like going through this thing and he's trying to heal her. And I'm just like about to sob. So you guys, you're really good at drawing people into that world. We do have a question. The first question is directed to Jaqueline. And the question is, what time is the best time you choose for writing during the day?
It's so funny because I guess it's a question for all of us, like pandemic or pre-pandemic, right? Is it our pandemic writing where like, what is there a time to the day? Like the day just goes on and like we never, it's hard to remember what month we're in, what day we're in, what year we're in. Mostly writing is best for me very early in the morning and very late at night. And I find myself now, because my son is in school remotely, and that's its whole area of struggle. On the days when he doesn't have to be to school in physical school very early, I can write till like 2 a.m. and then get up at like 10, and or my partner will get up with him. But on the days when I'm taking him to school, I try to write when I get him back from school in the morning. And it has to do with the light. I like writing when there's a lot of light in the room, a lot of natural light. But when I'm on deadline, like now, the minute I get off the Zoom, I'm going back to write. It becomes much more timeless when I'm on deadline.
Wow. I'm down for the natural light. That seems to always help. We do have another question, and it is, these 3 books being honored today are also special, each in its own way. How do you keep fresh so that each book you create is a unique experience? So I would like to direct it first to Oge, and then to Aiko, and then to Jack.
That is like such a great question. That is something that is definitely on my mind in every book I make. And in a way, like, I'm an illustrator, of course, but I kind of feel like with every book, I'm a little bit like a fashion designer, you know, where you have like your spring collection and your fall collection. And so like when the next book gets on my docket and I'm like, okay, what's the color trend for this book? And so like, what I do definitely collage wise, and I don't know if I could pull this up from back over here. Yeah, I can, is this is for a book that I'm working on right now. I'm illustrating, but
wow.
This is from like everybody in the Red Brick Building, but I make a mood board of inspiration every single time. So I sit down and I collect, I look at other picture books and I might isolate certain spreads, or I'll go back into some of my favorite artists, like Romare Bearden and other Jacob Lawrence and all sorts of different artists and things like that. And I'll think, oh, this one piece that he has, it has this really great deep palette. And that is something I want to like really have, or I really need to play around with this sort of mark making. And so I'll put all of those images and I'll put them on a board, and then I'll have that on my desk as I'm working. As you saw, I had that on my desk. And it's a really great way to not get into your like established patterns. Like for me as a painter, my favorite color is pink. I'm obsessed with pink. If I don't pay attention to how my color palette is, there will just be like pink everywhere. Like, how did this happen? And so I think the way I keep it fresh is I keep my eyes open, you know, like as I'm making my own picture books, I'm a voracious reader of picture books. And I'm just always trying to like read different things and see different things, because you never know what kind of story experience is really going to click with you and will be something where like you'll take that artist on or that writer on as like your teacher through that journey of that book, and be like, this person really plays well with like their shapes, and that's something I really want to really tell in this book because it's like really central to that storyline. And then that's how I'll have their work by my side as I'm working in order to remind myself to try to evoke that same kind of feeling.
So it's Jacqueline and then Aiko.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was last. It is such a great question. I think that as a writer, I never want to get bored. And if I feel like, and I never want to write cliche. And I think the great thing about having written a book before is that you have the faith that you can do it again. And I always think of Joni Mitchell when she was, she has a song called Circle Game, and people are always asking her to sing it at concerts. And she's like, no one ever asked Van Gogh to paint a starry night again. And I think I don't ever want to paint a starry night again. Each book is a question I have, and I have so many questions about the universe. And so when I go into a book, it's to ask and hopefully answer that question for myself. And also I try to write in different forms, which also keeps me from painting a starry night again. So if Brown Girl Dreaming is in verse and a memoir, then the next book is going to be more linear and fiction. And then the next book is going to be a picture book or an adult book or a newspaper article, so that I can keep the ideas fresh. That said, I do think that when academics look at my work, there are overlapping themes in the work: the theme of belonging, the theme of the desire to be loved, the theme of empathy and friendship, and for me, what are the steps we need to create a greater good, to make a better world? So you look at The Day You Begin, and it's about people actually having conversations and seeing each other. Or you look at The Other Side, and it's about girls as activists. Or you look at Each Kindness, and it's about missed opportunities. And if you miss those opportunities, there's a chance they don't come again. So let's be kind today. I think that I am consistent in being a writer who is an activist, but I do try to tell that narrative in different ways.
For me?
Yes.
Yes. I always would like to improve my art style and writing style, and I always try to study, and especially I love the old impressionist artist like Monet and but if I meet the paintings or literature that I really love, I just stare at it, until I know why I like it. Sometimes it takes a long time. I just don't know why I like it. It just caught my attention. But then I have to figure it out why I like it. And then try to be influenced by these great artists. So that's how I do.
That is wonderful. And I'm just looking at Mora's background and I'm blown away. That is just so pretty.
Yeah.
It's like gorgeous. And you actually answered a question someone just asked about your art style, and you just answered that. So that was grand. We do have another question, and it's, can you briefly summarize how you went about getting your first book published? So if we could start with Jaqueline, and then Aiko, and then Oge.
So for me, my first book that was published, my first novel, I had a small picture book, but that was just a contract thing. But my first novel was a novel called Last Summer with Mason. And I had written it while I was in college, and I was taking a children's book writing class with this woman named Margaret Bunny Gable. And this was at the New School here in New York City. And it turned out that someone had suggested it to me, and that's a whole long story, but it turned out that it was kind of a writing workshop for all the writers I had read as a kid. So like Emmy Kerr came through there, Judy Blume came through there, like all of these writers. And also a lot of editors came through to hear new writers. And my teacher, Bunny, read a part from Last Summer with Mason, and an editor said, "Can I buy this?" And so it was a lot of serendipity and not the struggle that I think some people have, but and I ended up at Bantam Doubleday Dell, which became Random House, where I still am. So 34 books later, but I had been sending out poems and short stories and stuff to adult magazines and getting them back rejected, but it was just a question of persevering. I think the hardest thing for me about getting published was finishing the book. And then rewriting. So like with Brown Girl Dreaming, I rewrote that 30 something times. And that was like one of my, like my 20th something book. So that rewriting thing never went away, but the publishing thing came kind of early for me.
My first picture book was this one, Friends. And the story came to me, and I just started illustrating the picture book, but it was so hard to edit so many times, but luckily I had a wonderful agent, and she sent to publishers, and then it was published. But the first one is always hard, that they didn't know anything about this, because I was in the science world and doing research in different things, so it was difficult, but yeah.
Should I go?
Yes. Okay.
I didn't know this about Jacqueline, but I guess like there's a lot of similarities there. My first published book also happened when I was like a senior in college. I went to art school, and I was actually I was majoring in illustration, and I'd actually intended to go into like textiles or like surface design, but it was my senior year, and so I was like, there's this children's book class, like I just really wanted to take it because I had always really been into children's books, but I was definitely taking this class as just kind of like a final hurrah, in the sense of like, oh, like when am I ever going to get like a chance to like take such a fun class ever again? Like I got to go off and get a real job, as I thought of it then. But I was like, oh, I'm going to take this class, and it's going to be kind of like this class that I take just to have fun and just learn a little bit more about picture books. But then I have my other textile courses that I'll like focus more so on. And then I started taking this class, and literally I started to like kind of abandon all my other classes because I was so obsessed. And I was like, it was kind of like everything. I felt when I was taking that class, like, before then, like while I was in school, I felt like I was just doing too many things. Like, oh, I was really into comics, and I liked writing stuff, and I was really into art history, or I was like to do like all these different types of things. And it didn't really feel like I was like leading into something like with like a purpose, like a lot of my other friends were. And I felt bad for like being interested in a lot of things. And then in this class, I was like doing writing and also illustrating picture books. I was like, all those things that I thought I was just wasting my time on, or people told me I was wasting my time on, suddenly were like very important. And then like, oh, these things have all like helped me kind of create a lot of those stories. And so like for my final project, and it's funny that you brought that up because I actually have it behind me. So I'll hold it up. I made a book dummy, or like a mock-up of a book, and it was titled Amu Stew. And so I read it out to the class for like my final critique. And there were some editors there who were like there to like critique the work, and some art directors. And there was an art director from Little Brown who had also gone to RISD. And so she was there, and she was like, oh, this is like a really cool story. Like, can I get a PDF of that? And I was like, you can have the PDF. You can have this book dummy. You can have my firstborn. Like, what do you want? Like, sure, I'll give it to you. And so like I sent that off fall semester, and then by spring semester I was in publishing. And I think the biggest thing, I definitely, what Jacqueline had said earlier, where it was definitely how I got in was a very odd story. But I think what after that process, it was the sketching and the resketching, and then like really like establishing like a collage style. Because before I had really worked on Thank You Amu, I had never done a collage as like elaborate as you see in some of the spreads. Because the way that art school, or like a lot of these schools or programs are set up, you're making a piece for each week. But I'd never worked on like a project. Like I think I ended up spending 2 years. So like for that long of a time and building on something. And so that was definitely plenty of rounds of my editor being like, these sketches are like not it, like redo them, or like your collages don't have enough texture, or like something about this color palette isn't working. And so I kind of felt like I had like a real great boot camp of that process of them really helping me like develop my work and also develop my voice.
Wow. Can I just ask both Aiko and Oge, how long is there an average time that takes that they work on a book?
Wow, that's a great question. For me, I think it takes. I'm a really slow illustrator, so I think it takes me now working like full time. It takes me like about a year.
That's not long. That's
process. So I'm very, very slow. How about you, Aiko?
It takes me forever, like more than a year. And then after that, there's always revision started. And then if publisher accept my work, and then the revision start again, and it's just so totally it takes like 2 years to publish, but it's worth it. And then it's very physically demanding, isn't it?
Wow. I can't imagine.
By the end, when I finish, I get more glaze.
I've definitely lost some hair by like the end of my deadlines. Thank goodness I have a lot of it, so you can't tell.
That's so great.
Wow. The amount of time, does it feel like a little bit of a release though when you're done? Like you've let it fly free. It's in the hands of somebody else now. The lap of the gods, as it were.
I love it. I love it off my desk. I was telling someone yesterday, I was sending them something, and I was like, ignore the typos, like just read it, just ignore the typos. And they said that someone had told them that the better the writer, the more the typos, because they don't care about that part. They just want you to get the gist of the story. So that made me feel a little better.
Okay, and Aika, does it feel good to you guys when you've released it? It is now.
Oh yeah. I guess I've only done a couple of books, but I kind of have this tradition that like I play Kirk Franklin, the storm is over now. As I'm like putting that, like I'm like getting all the artwork together, and I'm like, it's complete. All I do is send it off, and so I'm just like, yes. And my roommate's like, it's like 7 a.m. I've been up all night, and my roommate who I live with is like, well, what is she doing? It feels really great.
For me, it's like I'm halfway in between. Oh, it's so great, and then the other half of me is kind of like I'm being naked. Like people is gonna read my book now, and then I feel like I'm kind of a little bit ashamed. And then if I have a eraser, I would like to erase and collect things. But so half is so satisfied and great, and the other half is like I would like to hide. So.
So we have a question about school visits. So when you do school visits or you talk to children, what kind of questions do they ask authors, and are any ones that stand out in your mind that really made an impact on you as an author? So we would like to start with Aiko, and then Oge, and then Jacqueline.
I always prepare answering questions. So I might imagine what kind of question they have, and then I try to prepare for it. But it's always doesn't be like that. they have such a great attention, like great perspective. I don't know, like paying attention to things that I never pay attention. So one of my kids, like I went to, this is a story about alien boy, and then one of kids asked me, why do you like alien? never anticipated question, or like there's a word that about alien word that I can never read, and he asked me, what is that said? Like I can't answer. But every visit is amazing, and like I'm learning so much from them. And then I love their energy, and kids are wonderful, aren't they? Anyway, so yes.
So great.
Yeah, no, totally. I feel at least it's really nice thinking of school visits. I mean, like, yeah, they're like virtual school visits at this moment, but I'm thinking what feels like 20 years ago when we were all pre-pandemic and being there with kids. Something that I'm always really like the questions that usually like really stick to me. I don't think there's like, well, I mean, there's one direct question. Like when I was in a school once and I was just taking in questions and a kid asked me, okay, for thank you Amu, for the people who come to Amu's door, why do they increase in size each time? And I was like, when I was making that book, I was like, oh, well, you know, ideally it's kind of random who's coming to the door each time. So maybe I'll have like, it's an increase in height, you know, as you're going further down into the story. And that'll be kind of some sort of structure, even though it feels chaotic, because the idea is, oh, who's coming to the door? But like, as I'm doing that, I'm like, all right, this is kind of like, important for me to kind of understand. I was like, this is how I'm thinking through it, but like, I'm the only one who's thinking through this. Sorry. I'm the only one that was my brother. I'll call him back later. But I'm the only one who's thinking through this. But like that kid saw that and like was like, no, I saw that. You're not fooling anyone, okay? What's the answer for that? And so I think the questions that really catch me with kids is like, they see everything. They are the best, because like, I think especially for picture books where that picture is so centric, it's exactly what Jacqueline was talking about earlier, how you're reading those pictures first very often. Kids are honestly the best visual readers. They see everything. They're thinking about how in relation everything is to each thing. And so I think sometimes it shocks me like how much, like how they catch everything, like, you know, they really do. They'll be like, oh, like the tickets were on the counter on Saturday, or, oh, why do you have like flamingos on nearly every page? Like they just kind of see that tiny little detail that you might think, oh, that's just like a little Easter egg for me. A kid out there will see it and they will confront you about it and you'll be shocked that they noticed that.
It is so true. I think that I am always surprised, and sometimes you know, they also catch your typos. And they will call you out on them, and you will be calling your publisher and saying, why didn't anyone catch this? Why didn't the copy editor catch this? And now we have to make sure to put it in the next print run, fix it in the next print run. But I find that what I was saying earlier about the spiritual journey that Aiko talked about, that the child who asked me was a little Muslim girl who was completely hijabed. And I think part of it was for her, she's like a spiritual kid and wanted to see that Mora, right? Wanted to see a part of herself in the journey of writing. And I think I see, especially with the kids who are prepared, who don't, you know, who are trying to figure out not trying to figure out who you are and why you're there because no one's read any of your books to them and you just walk in. That makes me so crazy. If teachers are watching, like, please prepare your kids before we get there. But those kids who have done that deep dive into even just one book are just so thoughtful and astute and have been given a chance to go on that journey to see all of that and ask those questions that are bigger and deeper than the questions that young people ask when they don't know anything about who you are or the narrative.
That is so wise. And we have one more question because we're coming up on the end of our time together. But the question for all of you, speaking of connecting to books and vibing with books and authors, were there any specific authors and or books that influenced you as a young reader that made you say, I want to do that? So we're going to start first with Aiko, and then we're going to Jaqueline, and then Oge.
Oh, can I go get the book that I love?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes, please do. That would be lovely.
And I can answer it while you're going to get it. Is that cool?
Yes.
I too will take that moment.
Okay. I think I talked about it earlier. It was the Hans Christian Andersen book, Little Match Girl. And it was also The Selfish Giant by Oscar Wilde. Both of those books had pretty heartbreaking and resonant endings, and because of that, they stayed with me all my life. And I again and again, that's what I said, is that this is something I want to do. I want to write this kind of fiction that resonates. And then later on, of course, it was Mildred Taylor's Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry, which was such an important book for me as a young person, and Virginia Hamilton's Zelie, which is a book I really loved.
I would say also Alexander Hamilton the Great was, MC Higgins the Great.
MC Higgins, yeah.
I mixed some books up together there. That really resonated with me. Oh, Aiko is back. This is great. Okay, Aiko.
Of course, Peter Rabbit. And then and then there's I cannot pronounce his name. Mihiko Han. It's an old book, but his illustration just chills me. Like it gives me goosebumps. Can you see?
Oh wow!
And I'm trying to learn, but his illustration is beautiful. And then this one is Japanese illustrator. She has this. She's not with us anymore, but it's also like it's not. It speaks to me like. I don't know. It gives me goosebumps. So these are the books that I really love and still loving. And then the other one is I forgot the name. I'm so sorry. Maybe you can help. The Prince of the Star Moon. What's that called?
The Little Prince.
Yes. I'm so sorry. I loved the book when I was little, but I didn't know that there's such a deep meaning in it. And then as I became adult, and then I realized, oh my goodness, it has such a deep meaning for the life and love. And but when I was little, I didn't know, but I liked it. So yeah.
Okay.
Hi. I ran over to look for this book. My favorite picture book of all time is Tar Beach.
Oh.
It doesn't get better than that. It's just all of the patterns, like the colors. I got a chance to meet her, so I got my book signed.
Oh, nice.
But she's like an illustrator who means so much to me. just like how like the colors in this book, the idea that this girl can like fly around her city. Like when I was a kid, like I just thought that was like so cool that she could just like fly. It was just this beautiful, just this little girl in this white dress who was just like flying along the stars and just seeing everything below. It was just this really magical image for me, and the illustrations as well were something that just felt very true to the things that were really important to me. Like it just reminded me of so much of myself, and so much of like, oh, those patterns remind me of like the patterns my mom would wear and things like that. And so it's just something really warm and cozy about this book that I just unbelievably adore. I think I'll slip into more. There is also the book 26 Fairmont Avenue by Tommy DePaula. I love that book. I love everything by Tommy DePaula. He had this real magic about just kind of speaking to his like childhood in a way that was just fantastic. And this story, like he has a super large family, and it's talking about when they moved into the house and how he drew everyone in the house. And not only do you have like the writing there, it's like those illustrations, like he has, I don't know how he did it. He just, these characters and how they drew them, like they just really mesmerize you how they're drawn. And so that was a book that I just looked at over and over and over as a kid for the illustrations and also for the story itself. And really, really, really loved. And I think the last one I'll put in, which is kind of an odd pick, I'd say, is it's actually one of the few books I owned. Since I was by the library, I didn't own a lot of picture books, but it was one of the few books I owned because a family friend had come over and had like dropped off some gifts for us for Christmas. And in one of those, they had like the 12 Days of Christmas by Hilary Knight. Hilary Knight, the stupendous illustrator from Eloise. I didn't read Eloise as a kid. I read 12 Days of Christmas by Hilary Knight. And this book, it is like, I got this book and I was like, Christmas picture book. I don't want this Christmas picture book. And then I read it and I was like, yeah, the 12 Days of Christmas, my true love gave to me. Yeah. And then I started to look at these illustrations. And he has in this book all these like little woodland creatures. So like as the story's going on, there's like these separate narratives that each like, so like there's like these like, there's this one like bandit like raccoon who's like trying to open this like pot. And then eventually over the pages, he opens it and it has like another raccoon and he's like, yay, I found my true love. And then there's like these other woodland creatures who are like building up a Christmas tree that's finished by the end of the book. So there's like those like really, really tiny details that like, I just really became obsessed with this book because I could go back into it and I could like read that. And I'm like, oh, there's like this other tiny narrative that's carrying on. And so I think that was another book that just really gave me appreciation for that visual close reading. And so that's also a book that I definitely keep in mind, that magic of being able to realize how he made the 12 Days of Christmas, this song that we all know, well, everybody knows it. It should feel kind of boring. He just was able to reinvent it through the images themselves.
Wow.
Can I ask one question to everybody? Is that like physical actual books different from e-books, like digital books for you? Like how you feel, when you read, or like actually holding the actual books, different from like reading from the computer? Is that different?
Oof. I can't do it. I have such a hard time reading stuff on the computer. I can listen to books for older, if they're especially nonfiction, just because of the way I read, it's easier for me to hear nonfiction to remember stuff. But I cannot read on the computer at all. Ebooks, I can't do it.
Same, not an ebook reader. Love audiobooks. Picture books, I buy them all in the hardback just because you get to experience it. Because I think, especially for picture books, it's a people might think of books as 2D, but like a book is like a 3-dimensional object. And so even when I'm like working on my sketches, I'll print out my sketches, I'll make like a mock-up of the book, because you want to kind of get the experience of turning each page like your reader will and kind of understanding how that story is unfolding. And you can only sometimes figure that out when you're like holding something that evokes that.
So true.
Well, we have come to the end of our time together. This has been such a wonderful conversation. Thanks again to our panelists, Mora, Jacqueline Woodson, and Aiko Ikegami. Just a reminder that you can get copies of books by each one of our authors from the Book Loft of German Village at bookloft.com. Thanks again to our festival sponsors and partners, and thank you for joining us. Please check out the Ohioana website for all this year's festival program. Thank you, guys. You were wonderful.
Thank you. You were awesome. Thanks, Desiree. Thanks,
It
Janet.
was
Bye.
so honored to meet you guys.
Oh.
Thank you.
Bye.